Dear Chairman, President Constantinescu, dear President of the Senate, Crin Antonescu, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. For several years now, there are perceptible changes in our world. In the late 80s, liberal democracy continued the expansion started after World War II, at least in Europe. Meanwhile, national states have weakened under the pressure to liberalize trade and as effect of the fight for recognition of diverse minorities, being ethnic, political, sexual, etc. Globalization of the economy, communication, security, knowledge has become a reality. The financial crisis that broke out in 2008 surprised the world organized on market principles as economic regulator and threatens to develop into economic crisis with extended consequences still hard to detect. The United States' last two elections favored the advocates of change, and the policy reorientation of the first world power does not remain without consequences for all mankind. On the stage of the producer of the world, China and Germany are now the first exporters of the world. Russia lies among the powers that cannot be ignored in a serious political approach. For many years, we know, important theologians like Josef Ratzinger, Hans Küng, Jonathan Sachs, philosophers like Habermas and Rorty, economists like Stiglitz, Krugman, Jacques Attali, as true censors of the situation, have drawn the attention to the need for a change of direction in Euro-American culture. What happens now? Facts cannot be captured only by impressions, perceptions, and occasional random experiences, even though many intellectuals are lured by them, producing the barren chatter around us. Systematic thinking is always indispensable to those who want to actually understand what is going on. Not long ago, the famous National Intelligence Council, which in the United States periodically offers interpretation of the global trends, published a global report for 2015. This report is disturbing to a greater extent. It foreshadows the change the world. Several phrases summarizing the analysis in this report converge towards the image of a change of the world we used to know in the last 2 decades. In this move, the shift of the relative wealth and economic power from West to the East Asia and the growth of new actors, especially China and India, are crucial. The United States will remain the single most important actor, but it will look for cooperations. Against this background, in the context of globalization, a mixing of state and non-state actors, such as companies, banks, religious organizations, networks, will take place in conjunction with a competition for possessing nuclear weapons. The political agenda is becoming less local as the international interconnections and dependencies have their say. A world of discontinuities, shocks, and surprises opens its door. Consequently, any single result is preordered. The Western model of economic liberalism, democracy, and secularism, for example, which many have taken as inevitable and which is superior anyway, may be challenged by other models in the world culture. For the first time since the 18th century, China and India will be the biggest contributors to global growth. With a foreign exchange reserve of more than $2 trillion, China is already a financial power of the highest ranking. Russia and China, after South Korea and Singapore, seem to embrace the path of a market economy with the state as the main investor. Against this background, the importance of the two countries will be evident also in an attempt to find out a solution between the former Eastern socialism and the classical European capitalism. Therefore, the world we have known so far is changing under the least three aspects in our time. Asia, especially China, together with the United States, has become the center of the world economy. Power is redistributed from the states to diverse economic, spiritual, media, and military actors of contemporary societies. Democratic liberalism evolves toward government financial intervention, as Robert Reich at the White House recently argued, while in East Asia, a kind of state capitalism makes its way. A few years before, in his book Die Zukunft Macht, Gewinner und Verlierer in der Welt von Morgen, Helmut Schmidt, the former German Chancellor, gave, I think, a realistic diagnostic of the situation in the world, away from pessimism, which prevents the action, and away from an exaggerated optimism, which cultivates a false atmosphere. He assumed explicitly the perspective of an European. He spoke of the big four complex issues that mark the societies of our time: population explosion and its consequences, technological and economic consequences of globalization, vulnerability of the international financial markets, the consequences of global trade in armaments, in weapons. He drew conclusions about the situation of the world today, as well as the trends that lead to its immediate future. Even if we do not dwell on these arguments now, it is worth to note the results of this competent analysis, which suggests the fluidity of the world in which we live. Technological globalization, our code, has eased mixtures of any kind and has made possible the carrying out of private wars, for instance, as proven by Al-Qaeda. Therefore, the world no longer has a clear and somewhat stabilized structure. United States of America remains the world's superpower of reference that cannot be rivaled. But September 11 proved that even such a superpower may be attacked on its own territory. On the other hand, although remaining deeply undesirable, a confrontation between the West and Islam has become likely, but must be prevented, of course. China is a new emerging superpower which is met with, I quote Helmut Schmidt, respect, cooperation and exchanges. Russia still needs time for necessary reform, but its peaceful orientation and course toward reconstruction need to be taken seriously, said Helmut Schmidt. The European Union has difficulty in articulating itself, so that a break in extension has become, for the time being, necessary. In the decade ahead, the European Union will not turn into a counterpower to the American superpower. In general, the world, Helmut Schmidt said, has become more complicated and its tendencies so far require lucid reconsideration. Let me finish by synthesizing the new reorientation on the geopolitical map of Europe. European crisis will continue and will bring about some stringent issues to overcome the democratic deficit by progressing from intergovernmental agreements to effective democratic consultation, to clarify the governing of a compound of 28 states, to reaffirm the aim of the European Union. In the present-day context and in the years ahead, Germany will remain an ally of France, while acquiring a more prominent role and implementing its own policies. Russia will continue its way toward modernization and will seek to promote its interests and aspirations of power in all directions. Poland will enjoy economic success and will be an emerging power. Turkey will exploit its enormous potential to radiate influence, including political influence. Israel, with an advanced defense and an advanced economy based on innovation, will be an increasingly attractive partner. And I will quote a book which is translated now in the Arabic countries, a book published in Israel, in America, the book written by Senior and Zinger, Startup Nation, which was introduced by Shimon Peres, a wonderful book which argue many surprising things. There are good surprises, I would say, that Israel, for the first time in history, has the capabilities, economic, scientific capabilities, to defend itself. And this is a great achievement of policy in this part of the world. Eurasia is a region of the world that is gaining in importance, while the United States of America will promote policies to prevent a power in the Caucasus region to gain prepotence. Ladies and gentlemen, against this background, the cultural diplomacy has to find out its strategies and to conceive its initiatives. The implications of my descriptions are vast, and also for Europe at large. One implication, in my view, at least, has a special weight. The communities also in this region, in Mediterranean, let's say, Eastern European, Central European region, communities will solve their problems if they have leaders of quality. The importance of competence, insight and culture increases tremendously in the present change in the world. People of vision regain their place, since they are not only needed, but also, in my view, indispensable for communities to be successful. I thank you very much for your attention.